Welcome back once again, sports fans, to the only undefeated Pac-10 sports show. I'm Dan Fiedler.
And I'm Chris Carr.
And today we're going back
and forth.
We begin with the biggest game for Cal this weekend, and surprise, surprise, it's not football. In fact, the women's volleyball team will travel to Stanford, ranked number 5, to square off against the number 4 ranked Stanford Cardinal. They're led by junior outside hitter Hannah Kudera, while the Stanford Cardinal are led by the junior outside hitter Alex Kleinman. Figures to be a huge game. What do you think of it, Chris?
Well, Dan, when I think about this matchup, I think, of something like the irresistible force versus the immovable object. I mean, we've got two undefeated Pac-10 teams, top 5 in the country.
Right.
And you mentioned Hannah Kudera. She had 14 kills and 28 attacks, 3 service aces against Arizona State, I believe, this weekend. So, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a great matchup.
Right. It's almost impossible to call a victor right now. Both of these teams are on 11-game winning streaks, which is just nearly impossible. One thing I got to give the edge to Stanford for, though, is that they played at Maples Pavilion last year when both teams were playing phenomenally, and Stanford beat them in rather close fashion, 3-2. I think home court advantage is going to give the Cardinal a little bit of an edge here.
When you think about this matchup, too, I mean, a lot of people talk about the Battle of the Bay and women's basketball, but
the big spike.
The big spike is big. I mean, it's
so.
huge, and this whole rivalry between Cal and Stanford is a big deal. But I think women's volleyball definitely deserves a little bit more respect, and
it's going to get a lot of respect. I think emotions are really going to flare for this game. Paul Sunderland, who actually was a Lakers announcer down in Los Angeles for a while, is going to be calling this game. It's getting a lot of media publication and publicity. I think it's going to be really one to watch for.
Well deserved. We now move to the football field, where Cal will go to the University of Arizona in Tucson to play this Saturday. Cal comes off a win against Arizona State, 24-14 last game, and Javid Best is back from an injury. So, Dan, how will that impact Saturday's game?
Okay, well, first things first, Chris. This game is incredibly important for the Bears, as is pretty much every single game going forward, because the Bears are the only undefeated team left in the Pac-10, which means they control their destiny. If they win out, they win the Pac-10 and go to the Rose Bowl. And I think Javid Best coming back is going to be a huge boon for them.
There's no question that Javid Best is going to be just that much better, I think.
Yeah, he's just more elusive.
And also, call me crazy, but I think Brian Anger is actually going to be a big deal in this game, because against Arizona State a couple of weeks ago, he had 3 punts that pinned them within their 10-yard line.
Right.
One of them was 72 yards.
That
so I mean, this guy is crazy, and he was the Pac-10 Special Teams Player of the Week, I believe, as well.
He was, yeah. Anger he's just a beast, and he can punt the ball down the field. Field position is so important in this, and I think Arizona even more. They're a passing-heavy team. It really helps that the Bears have the best secondary in the Pac-10. They lead the league in interceptions with 10. That's going to be really good, and the road aspect scares me a little bit, especially since we lost our Rose Bowl berth there in 2006. But I think with our takeaway-oriented defense, it's going to be really bad if you like blue and red, basically. We now move to the world of women's tennis, and the St. Mary's Invitational concluded this past week in Moraga, and the Golden Bears cleaned up. The women's tennis team doubles pair of Yana Yurakova and Rachel Dillon defeated a doubles team from Stanford 8-5, and then Yurakova knocked off her partner in the semifinals before going on to win the championship. The Bears won both the singles and the doubles championship in this tournament. Chris, what does this speak towards the dominance of the women's Golden Bears team?
Well, Dan, yeah, this tennis team for Cal is definitely very impressive coming into this week. They're playing Stanford. They actually have a chance to go to the Nationals, which is in Virginia on November 6th to the 9th. So if they can get through Stanford, I think, it definitely spells more good things for Cal.
Right, definitely. And one of the things that I think is so important that I want to touch at is, college tennis seemed to dwindle a little bit because of the pros. Everybody wants to jump. They've decided to compete at the collegiate level as opposed to going professional. But whatever it is, it's really refreshing, and it makes for great tennis.
When you have, 2 players basically beating each other, when you're beating up on each other, that's a good sign. When 2 players can both win the doubles and then sort of compete as heavily as they did, or as well as they did in the singles competition, that's just great.
Okay, well, that's all the time we have for today. Thanks for tuning in for CalTV. My name's Dan Fiedler, and this is
Chris Carr.
Chris Carr. We'll see you next week. Bye-bye.